and somebody commented that my energy levels were also down. And I didn't feel it that way, but I can understand that it might have been down, because one of the things we get the greatest energy from is from all of us coming together. So if the room is not full and we are not getting together, then you do not feel that energy. But now I feel the energy. I can see the energy outside the room as well. We need to pull that energy back into the room and get started on a fantastic session which I have already introduced. And this, I must share a personal story on this one. When it came to the GCC, I know that it was fetching us a good deal of business. It was busy, active, but just like everybody else, I thought I did something which others found it efficient, cost efficient to put it there. 3 months ago, I got involved much more into the GCC space because of a kind of a bit of a role shift which happened. And I started meeting more closely with Varsha and others. And I just realized that this was at the cusp of a massive, massive change. It was a personal realization for me that it was a cusp of massive, massive change. And the change was being brought about on what I spoke yesterday, that technology which is integrating seamlessly AI and human scale capability, human capabilities coming together. It's not about technology alone. It's not about AI as a genre of technology alone, but humans coming together at scale across functions, being able to deliver fantastic stuff. Also, if you go to the thought leadership, which is now online, you'll see that in the energy space, different people have been doing different things. Okay, but it could well envisage that a single organization in a GCC or in a cluster of GCCs were doing all those things. So that would then make it a very different animal as compared to individual functions. And that, I think that moment has come. As I said yesterday, the front and back no longer are separate. It's collapsed into one. And people very loudly say that the GCC is another office. I go one step beyond to say that by 2030, GCC will not be another office. If you had to have the office, the GCC would be the office. So with that, let me invite Shalini Pillay to call on her guests. Shalini leads our GCC practice from where it was nothing to make it substantive enough, and to the point that we are now looking at a name change, because it's no longer the traditional capability center, but it's a nerve center. Maybe we'll call it GNC later. Okay, over to you, Shalini.
Thank you, Anish, and a very good morning to everyone. It is truly energizing to see the room fill up again. First thing this morning, it did look a little sparse, but a pleasure to be here. And allow me to invite our panelists for this morning. Let me invite Mr. Gurdeep Singh, a very, very celebrated personality, chairman and MD of NTPC, to join us on stage. And I invite Varsha Singh, who heads BP's GCC in India, again with long years of experience in the GCC space. Please. All right, a lot has been spoken about GCC. And actually, I must, even if on a lighter note, say that until a few years ago, if you actually Google GCC, and this industry knows it better than anyone else, what would pop up is the Gulf Cooperation Council. It still is relevant, but today global capability centers have actually redefined that acronym at one level. And like Anish said, you could say GNC, you could say GVC, there are lots of interesting terminologies emerging for it. But I thought I'll spend a few minutes talking a little about the journey before we open up for this interesting conversation today. GCC, shared services, and hence SSCs are not a new term. They've been around for almost 3 decades now. In fact, I cannot help but talk about my very first project in the consulting world, which was in the early 2000s, which was setting up a shared service center for Castrol way back then, long, long ago. And the primary fundamentals of that model haven't really changed. Shared services, which is really what pulls together an integrated backbone for the organization on the back of technology, is what the model is premised on. It has evolved. It's way beyond finance, IT, HR, procurement, and we'll talk a little about the shift that has happened from what used to be called back office to middle office and now increasingly front office. Terminologies keep changing. A lot of the GCCs today don't call themselves a GCC even, because they believe they're really at that cockpit of transformation and innovation for the global organization sitting out of India. So that shift is something that we're going to spend a little time talking about as we get into conversations with Mr. Gurdeep Singh and Varsha Singh today. And we will touch upon elements of what that evolution has entailed and where it is likely to go. Today, like you heard, the country has about, I would say, anywhere between 1,800 to 2,000 GCCs. One new GCC being set up in India every week, and that's not an exaggeration. You saw the report we released yesterday. Please do peek into it. It talks a little about what and how GCCs have the potential of reimagining the energy enterprise. And we will talk about that today. In fact, to me, it's really special to be at an energy conference talking about the impact GCCs can make, because I think this sector is what is going to really change what the world is going to mean for the human race. So when energy companies wake up to the opportunity and what GCCs could do, it can be truly transformative. And I think there's a lot of exciting stuff already happening, but at one level, I think we're still only scratching the surface. With the way technology is going, there's so much more we're going to see happen in this space. So with that little bit of a brief context, as we talk about what does reimagining the energy enterprise mean, how do you bring together technology, AI, and reap the benefits of the very rich digital demographic dividend that India offers to pull together this opportunity and actually take it to another level. You heard the Honorable Minister talk about it yesterday. Super encouraging, because he recognized also the power and potential of GCC and what the model brings. We at KPMG also work with the central government and MeitY on their initiatives to draft the framework for GCCs going forward, making it easier and even more effective. So with that, let me kind of get right into our conversation. In fact, very interestingly, you can see the profiles we have on stage today. And I'd love to open up with Mr. Singh talking about, from a public sector, very, very privileged role and an enterprise that he represents. They have also adopted the shared services model. Would love to hear a little, sir, about what that journey has meant for you and how have you seen it unlock value for your organization?
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, let me thank Anish, who's a long-time friend, for inviting. And I had to make it a point to be here because I could find some reasons not to be present in previous 2 occasions. So there was no solid reason for me not to come here today. But again, I think every time I came here for the last 10 years, and in between 2 times I could not come. So learned quite a lot, and always encouraged to see this, the participation from across the globe, most probably, and from the industries, and just starting from service provider, equipment manufacturer, designers, people like us who generate, then they transmit and they distribute, and the whole value chain. And the energy, I think this energy is something which is probably people when say energy, the oil and gas comes into mind, but I think power is also emerging as a kind of the energy which is going to be today around 20%, but we try to become a kind of 30%. So let me, I think, just come back again. So when Anish was discussing with me that I have to be in this panel, I said that I'm not an IT guy. So you'll have to excuse me for not having that kind of this. So I thought that GCC is all about IT. But because we are not the people who are just dealing with the public or dealing with those kind of things. Because in our kind of common man's sense that whether it is Hyderabad, Bangalore or Gurgaon or Noida, I think this Chennai, it's everywhere there are a number of GCCs, as Shalini was mentioning, that every week there is one GCC is coming, and this has been very helpful. So we thought that this is being kind of working on through the IT system, but in the different forms. And that's where I think this was coming. Then Anish just said that try to share that what we have done in NTPC. So without getting into the kind of theoretical aspects and kind of the steps which are admirable and in its own way from the government side and from the very people who are involved and who are making this as a very, very big businesses and which is helping the society at the end. Any field, I think, when we are taking on that. So let me, I think, just try to just share a few things. Anish, you can come, and then I just mentioned that why you have put me here in this panel, but let me, I think, start sharing now you are here. So as you will be knowing that I came on the board about in 2016, and we have multiple locations almost around, now touching to 75, 80 locations. So we can call it a global presence if we see that the India is a continent. And so it's not necessary that you have to be in a different country, but it's a geographically then these, if your assets or if your kind of plants are spread over length and breadth of the country, I think we as a one of a very, very large country. So this gives the complexion what many of the multinational companies feel that we are working in a different countries. So that is the complexity. So we also have the similar kind of complexity here. I had some experience of working with the multinational for a few of the multinationals and try to work in different time zones and kind of those things. So that was also handy. So when we started looking at that, let us say that we are having the one of the power plant, which is the pump, if you have to have buy the spare parts, every plant was trying to just put a kind of PR, then process that and try to buy that. So this is just something which is a typical decentralized. And we started saying that the same vendor has to go to 10 places and try to convince or then discussions. Then at times they were also saying that the bid is running from the different kind of plants. So we said that this is something which is inefficient. And today, when we implemented our SAP, I think the SAP guys are also here. So that came very helpful. That we said that let us have the regional based kind of our activities, whether it is HR, whether it is finance, procurement, design, engineering, operational kind of inputs, etc., etc. And more importantly, the training. I think that is also an important part. So that time there was a lot of resistance, as Shalini just mentioned, that we are in the public sector, and public sector by nature, people feel that then they are in the kind of privileged. I think that is the word you just said. But I think we are also in the business, and we are very competitive by any means if you start comparing some of the indexes. So we start saying that let's try to bring down kind of our activities and reduce that workload what we are doing. And there was a lot of hesitation. And many people said that our plant will stop because that is the highest kind of threat they can pose to them. So having some experience in the power plant maintenance operation, we said, okay, you have told your problem, so let's go ahead what we are saying. So we started with that, and within 6 months or so, people started coming and then say that why we should not really, from the regional based, why we should not be coming to the company-wide base. And that is how we started calling it the unified shared services. So earlier it was regional shared services, and then we came back to the unified shared services. So today, when we are talking, our all operation services are being rendered from Raipur. Our engineering services for the new projects are from Hyderabad. Our HR services are from Moda. Our finance is in Simadri, which is in kind of very close to Vizag. And the vendors' kind of reaction was that they said that I don't know whom I should go. And I said that is the best thing, that you need not to go to anyone. I think the typical thing in the many of the industries and the PSUs will be that people will go and try to just meet and that they feel satisfied that now the work. So the best part of this unified shared services or after implementing SAP was that nobody need to know that what is going. And we also now we shifted that the people will give the requirement of their annual requirement, whether it is from the HR side, whether it is from the material side, or whether from the any other input. And then this unified shared service, or what we can call it, is, probably in this conference we can call it GCC for us, which is working from the different part of the country. They will take care, and who is going to do, they are not bothered, who is the person who is doing. So they can have the status online. Let me share then half a minute then earlier, just before COVID, we said that now we have shifted to this lot of ERP and IT system and what we call Pradeep, which is basically the SAP driven system, that some of the people can start working from home. And this came that as if we are kind of getting rid of people, and they said that how it can happen that work from home. And some of the association people went ahead, and I think some media friend also covered that article. Yeah. And after a few months, the COVID stuck. And then everybody started working from home. And the same people who were trying to then raise this, they said that how you are knowing that we will have to start working from home in that case. So point is that I think then in a PSU, it is much more difficult to make that change, but I think once you are able to take that responsibility and say that we are behind you, don't worry about that, I think the things will start happening. Today, when we are speaking, our whole vendor-based is also like your bank account. I keep telling that people should be able to log in your system and try to work on that. So even what is the status of the work, what is the your bill, how it is being processed, everything, and the payment will be online. So that it is as good as that these are like banks, these are our customer. For the banks, these are customer, and the service providers are also then, I think then they are our partners. So the only point of that, and I was a little hesitant to share here, because in the government system that is not something which is considered to be a kind of very good output. It has really helped, I think, to get the same work done in a far better way by almost 50% of the workload from the people side. So today we are around 18,000 people running 83,000 megawatt. And when we started this journey, we were around 42,000 megawatt and with around 24,000 people. And wow. The efficiency has gone up. So this, the kind of this GCC or the unified shared service, I think this is a tremendous benefit. And as of now, I think many of the other companies, especially the power companies, they are seeking how they can replicate the same things, which we can discuss later. Probably I take a little more time than in the initial stage.
Not at all, sir. I think there couldn't have been a more perfect context setting to our conversation, because unified shared services, as you just described, super impressive, and you've touched upon so many things. A, the complexities across locations and what a shared model brings in terms of using technology as a great leveler and pulling it together for the advantages you just spoke of. You touched upon change management, which is so critical, and it is as relevant in the GCC world as it is in your unified shared services model, because as for any process, when you're trying to pull things centrally, you're trying to do it in a remote way, there is tremendous change to be managed. I know one of our next panels is going to touch upon it as well, but leadership and sponsorship being critical, and all of those are, I think, really, really very relevant components. You spoke about how the scope has expanded and how you've seen benefits. So I think completely comparable with what we see in the GCC world. And we'll talk a little more about some of those technology levers and how that's being used. Varsha, if I may come to you, I mean, besides your BP role, you've of course been in the GCC space for a long time. It would be lovely to hear you talk about what that evolution has been like as you've seen it, whether from a scope, from a, Sir touched upon also the vendor ecosystem, how you've seen that come together, and share a little about your journey in that context.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you, Shalini, and a big thank you to KPMG for giving me this opportunity to come and participate. I have also, like Mr. Singh, I think ran out of excuses in the past not to be here, but I couldn't not be here when I realized what an important topic we are covering for the energy sector today. So I am absolutely delighted, I'm absolutely heartened and encouraged with the conversation that is happening. And I think it has been, for me, really even more powerful to have the Honorable Minister here yesterday making a reference to the impact that this industry is having on our sector, not just on our sector, on the ecosystem, on the wider, talent agenda that we have in terms of skilling and building future skills. So it's absolutely fantastic in terms of timing and the support and encouragement from partners. Of course, it's been also a delight to hear from industry veterans, policymakers, I think business leaders, and different points of view around, how the sector is evolving, and particularly GCCs and the role they play. Now, if I look back at my 30 years in the industry, I have to say that when I was a young MBA armed with a finance degree, I could not have imagined that 30 years later, I would be doing this role that I do in BP. And it's not because I lacked ambition or I was not determined to succeed. It's because these roles did not exist. The organizations were traditional. It had different hierarchies. It was very regional. And therefore, just the possibility of doing global roles and creating global impacts was not even something that people could dream about. And to have now seen this industry grow to a potential of $100 billion is, I think, the number that was quoted yesterday. The employment of 1.9, nearly 2 million, and if you take the wider ecosystem, it will be much more of an impact. And the overall impact on society that Mr. Singh also said, referenced in his talk, is actually really, really impactful and compelling in terms of, how this industry has grown. I'm also really very grateful for the support we are getting on policy. So we have been working in the industry with yourselves, partners like yourselves, industry bodies, policy makers to make this industry more competitive, to make it more, continue to be relevant in the global landscape. And I think we are absolutely delighted for the adjustments that have been made in the GST Act, which, particularly change some of the sections to provide the export status and provide the refund back to this industry, which make it more competitive. It reduces the risk kind of, provisioning and also the litigation. So I think that's been a very, very positive step. And I really want to acknowledge the support both from the policymakers, the government, and also from the industry association and peers and partners to make this happen, to continue to make this industry relevant. So that's a little bit my reflection on this industry. But maybe I can talk a little bit about my personal journey, and at the risk of not being invited to the next conference maybe, I started my career in consulting and finance consulting, and I of course worked at board level with different companies, with board members, and on various problems around restructuring and balance sheets and all of that. And then after 7 years, I said, you know what, I think I'll do some real work now. So that's on the lighter side, but it was an enlightening experience working across industries. And what I realized is that every business was facing the same problem. It was removing the complexity internally, whether it was of the processes, whether it was the systems, or whether it was the dynamics of the business and that uncertainty. And they were all trying to solve it in the most cost-effective way, in the quickest of manners. And that led me to then spend about 10 years in the third-party environment. In the third parties, what I saw was a lot of transformation of operating models. Many of you who have been there witnessing this, we went from insourcing to outsourcing, from build, operate, and transfer to captives. We went from joint ventures to different models. I think, over time, every organization experimented, and, most experiments work, but I think what they realized is there was more value. There was more value to be achieved, and I think, last 10 years, I'm happy that I was in this GCC space, previously with the telecom company, and now for the last 5 years with BP, and I have seen that rapid scale, and I've seen that inflection point, and I'm very excited about the possibilities. Like somebody said, we haven't yet realized the full potential. There's a lot more to be achieved, but it's a fantastic space to be in, and it's a great timing in terms of having this conversation. I would say my 5 years in BP is very recent. I'm not an energy veteran. I don't come from the energy sector like most, esteemed members here. So I joined BP really because I was excited at the possibility of an energy company going through transition. And it was a very historic moment, I think, for the company to reimagine its energy ambition and the transition roadmap, etc. And therefore, having the GCC actually became a very important strategic lever for the company, because they needed to release capacity in terms of cost, in terms of, just mind capacity to be able to transition. Right? Now, of course, we all know that we have reset our strategy and we have slightly pivoted to keep up with the pace of the geopolitical environment and what our consumers want and what to stay more relevant. We have done that because this is what we need. But what we have realized is that this GCC has become for us a nerve center. It has a potential of becoming a nerve center. Our presence, like I said, is only 4 years. We are based in Pune. We were set up during the pandemic, and this is when I joined them. So we had a pandemic experience going from 0 to 1200 in the first year with partners' support. I would say that we are only successful because of the ecosystem that we thrive in. And in the last 4 years, we have gone from a finance GBS organization to now a multidisciplinary business and technology center, which has more than 5,000 people, multidisciplines, and, of course, delivering and accelerating value. So that's my context to the industry and my personal sort of input. And like I said, I'm very excited about the next steps, and I can detail more about some of our achievements.
Sure, we'll come back, but thank you, Varsha, for that. I think I've seen part that at least the last 5 years, I've seen that journey from at BP, and I've seen the tremendous growth, and of course, you're still early days. There's so much more to come. The GCC model is going to continue to evolve as we speak, and Anish touched upon it in his opening. Many of us in the industry sit with bated breath, wondering what President Trump is going to do and what implications might be for GCCs. What are those geopolitical headwinds going to mean? Though one does believe that GCCs being subsidiaries of US headquartered companies, as long as you are adding tremendous value to the parent organization, you are future-proofed. And within this room, of course, the President Trump is a businessman first, and anything that would enable businesses further, I think, is a huge plus. So on that side, we think it's not going to make a huge impact, but technology is changing a lot of what the GCC world is going to see. The mantra has already been doing a lot more with less, and we've seen that happen over the years. We've seen organizations set up their ERP centers of excellence, their cyber security operating centers in India, and all of that making it this nerve center that's driving transformation. So with that, I'm going to pivot a little to technology. I know, sir, you called out upfront, you're not an IT person, but the role of business on how you are seeing IT make that impact and how you're seeing that change come about is very, very important. So would love to hear your take on the technology pivot that's driving your unified shared services model.
Again, thank you for this question also, but let me, I think, try to add a few things on this before I come to then your basic question. I believe that most of the things what we have developed, this is with the help of the various vendors, so there is indirectly, there is a lot of business for people. But there are many homegrown solutions what we have come as our what we call unified shared service concept of that. And just so the technology companies have really helped us on that side. But once that is developed, I think we are now self-sufficient. आत्मनिर्भरता जो है वो इसमें हम एक तरफ जो है ना एक तरह से उसको लेके आ रहे हैं. And we have huge potential, I think, in the IT services and the development, including AI, hopefully. So I think we should see this as an opportunity. Whether the ownership lies where it lies, I think that is going to be important, but I think this is the one other part of the piece. And I'm sure that, see, today's, I think, one of the news item what was saying that what we faced in some time about 3.5 decades back, probably this is the opportunity which is coming up in this. So if I just come back, I think then when we had implemented our ERP, this basically SAP, and now we are upgrading that to SAP HANA. The first concern, you know that how it was coming, that we are used to have the paper and moving the files. So if there is a mistake, we can always correct in the first step. So now we will not be able to do anything. So that was the first concern which was being then kind of echoed on that. So apprehensions will be of different kinds, but we will have to go on working on that different technologies on that side. So today when we are talking about our projects which are we are undertaking again, whether it is renewable energy or coal-based or the other hydro projects, at one location in Hyderabad or then even in Delhi, once it is picked up, the signal is picked up, you can pick up. With the help of the drones, we are able to monitor the online progress of those each and every project. And it's not only that you are monitoring, I think the best part is coming when the person sitting in our, if you can say the GCC in, let's say in Hyderabad, and whatever the concern is coming, he is able to really intervene and try to give the solution to that problem, including the online and giving the drawings or trying to give the solution to that point. So as you rightly said, this is all about the efficiency, bringing the efficiency and trying to save the cost and the material. I think this is actually happening, and the technology, whatever is available today, I think we always try to source that. Maybe that we are not the technology developer, but in many other ways, like in the energy space itself, it's going to be huge requirement. I'm sure in the earlier panel, there would have been some discussion. And one of the thought which I'm just leaving, which is not new one, but I'm just reiterating, that the concept of prosumer is not far away. And the prosumer is that you can generate your power like solar during the day, and you can consume the energy during the evening, something like that. And this will be a kind of much more requiring the technology-based platforms and monitoring and then controlling from the kind of centralized system, because grid is one. So the power, this is not a kind of only localized one, but the grids will be really giving lot of opportunities for many of the service provider, technology provider, equipment manufacturers, I think the executors, tremendous kind of opportunities. And if they can start applying the concept of the GCC, where they will be able to go for some kind of not only developing those systems and procedures, but trying to standardize those things, and which will be able to further bring down the cost. I think this will go in a long way for serving the, I think, humanity. At the purpose of the business is not only making profit, I believe. At least I can say, sitting in the public sector, that we always say that this is, we have to make sure that the power is available and that is affordable, and then only we are going for the profit. And our slogan always remains the people before profit, because these are the people, they are our employees and partners, those who are making these things possible. So there will remain a kind of great contribution from the technologies which are available today and the technologies which are emerging. I think then we have seen that what is the AI is doing and how it is going to really further kind of some kind of constructive disruption, if I can say, it is going to bring. I think we have to be aware of those things and try to leverage the strength coming out of these things rather than being scared of these points. And the best part again is coming out is company like ours, which are the large in size. I'm not trying to say multinational or national, the large in size and the operations across the different geographies. I think they can develop that kind of competence and talent at one point, and which can really serve with the help of the technology for each and every one, which is going to bring down the cost and increase the reliability and availability. Thank you.
Wow, sir, I think, and I'm going to say USSC, your Unified Shared Services, clearly warrants doing a little case on it, because you've touched upon so many things. You've touched upon your ERP journey and how that got enabled centrally. You spoke about drone technology, and we're seeing a bunch of energy majors using that to actually monitor the health of their assets, oil rigs, pipelines, and there's phenomenal, opportunity sitting just there.
Let me just interject here. Yeah. You know, this is, many people would not like this, the kind of what we are having, the asset called ash pond, which is the kind of, it's a very, very huge structures, because millions of tons of fly ash which was stored. And the safety and security was always a concern of that during the monsoon period. So we took the help of the drones and early signs of reduction. I think if there is any stress is developing, everybody will be just attracted towards which is kind of giving the mileage. But the things which are not given that kind of priorities, and it's, are out of sight, out of mind, because these are some kilometers away. So those are those things are also now being undertaken through the use of this technology, AI, and we again will be having at least about some 100 ash ponds. Wow. So we have to make sure that those are also safe during this. Yeah. We know that what is happening to Amlajana in the last few days. I think the weather has been really, Amlajana has posed a lot of challenges at many parts of this. So this helps not only kind of creating some new things, but it's the best part is, I think, to maintain and to bring the efficiency of the existing assets is also one of the major parameters.
Absolutely, sir. And in fact, I think a big thanks to Anish and our energy team for bringing this GCC model to the stage and having as much conversation. Anish touched upon it. The future of GCCs is techno-functional stuff. The easy, low-hanging fruits have been done, IT, finance, HR, procurement. That's kind of been done and dusted for the most part. But how are you going to impact core processes and make real impact is where the story lies. You touched also upon customer experience, which is a great segue, Varsha, for me to come to you. When you look at technology and AI, we can't not have AI as part of this conversation, but tell us a little more about, from a customer experience lens, how are you seeing it? I know you've spent some time in that space, and the consumer is getting increasingly aware about, even the energy consumers are getting more conscious.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was mentioning that at BP, we are a multidisciplinary center. So not only do we have our oil and gas engineering center, we have our digital technology center, we have our downstream center, our customer and product center, and we of course have our finance and HR center. You asked me to focus on customer, and maybe I'll pick a few examples. And I will talk not just on the positive side of AI, but maybe I will just put out here a cautious reminder on the guardrails of the use of AI. And I remember having the chat yesterday evening with Akhilesh to say, after the AI session, I would say I'm cautiously excited. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So, of course, the natural use cases, and BP has 600 AI use cases. Let me make that mention. No upmanship on KPMG, but everyone is super excited about AI, and we're trying to find the right ones which will really, drive the value. On the customer side, we have AI-powered chatbots. We are using AI-powered data analytics and insight to improve customer value management, even customer lifetime management, because we have our consumers walking in maybe to fuel, buy a cup of coffee, but also sometimes to charge their EV vehicle. And we do have, real estate that we want to make sure that we are optimizing our asset in terms of maintenance, in terms of efficiency. So we are definitely using AI-powered platform and AI-powered data models to help improve those category management in terms of, some of the products, where should they be placed on our shelves, right? Because sometimes a dad who's dropping their kid to school in the morning, you'll be surprised to know. Any guesses what they would be buying? The school drop dad in the US?
Tell us.
A milkshake for themselves.
Oh, okay.
So we've got very interesting insights, which is actually helping our business, understand and respond to consumer behaviors. And these are the obvious use cases which, all organizations want to increase their revenue, reduce their costs. But I want to talk about 2 or 3 examples which really alerted me in the last few months, I would say, even weeks. We had 2 deepfake fraud attempts in our organization. One was in Australia, and this was a deepfake usage to onboard a B2B customer. So we do have, like many organizations, a very, very robust counterparty due diligence process because, you know, there are all these regulations, sanctions, anti-money laundering, etc. We want to make sure that we have credit-worthy customers coming in. But here was a customer that was using deepfake to pretend to be someone they weren't through an AI-generated video. And the human in the loop, actually, in this case, was able to spot some discrepancy between the credit assessment that was cleared by this AI versus what, you know, the books were actually showing. And this was a perfect example where it was human-assisted AI and we could stop something that could have maybe resulted in millions of dollars of leakage, right, to our enterprise. So this got us a bit worried. And we immediately contacted our service providers to say, you know, how are you staying ahead of the curve to make sure that you have got the guardrails to spot AI misuse. So I think AI ethics is becoming a very important discussion, and I think it should become a very important discussion, not in the GCCs alone, but in a wider context. Second example of customers fraud, it got even more serious this time. And many of you may have heard examples of some fraud around deep fake board members calling a board meeting and, you know, asking their CFO to, you know, take certain decisions. Closer home in BP, it actually happened recently. Again, an AI fraud, which we were able to prevent, but it was a deep fake generated WhatsApp video, WhatsApp call, message, email, creating a sense of urgency with one of our employees saying, you have to process this payment, it's super secret, it's super confident, and by the way, they even managed to get one of the big fours letter of credibility to say that they were the consultants and they were urging this urgent payment. And it was, again, running into millions of dollars. Luckily, and the person in our GCC, the employee, because of all the cyber training, the cyber awareness, you know, the fraud prevention trainings that we are doing, was smart enough to actually message using our internal system to the senior leader to say, look, are you indeed asking me to process this payment because it's very unusual on the weekend? And I also have like a consultant saying that yes, and this could be a case when we do, you know, mergers, acquisitions, and confidential projects. So this was another case which got us really thinking and worried about, you know, how we can really adapt to this new world, you know, between reality and what AI hallucination can be providing us as an input. And then the third example was closer home. It was my personal experience. And it was really fascinating now. Of course, could have been scary, is that I was interviewing for a senior leader position in my organization, and I had a fantastic CV and a fantastic candidate who had actually done 4 rounds of interviews already in our organization. But it happened that these interviews were all virtual because, as you know, we have adapted to hybrid models. And this individual had the best CV for the job, and they had experts, had expertise in agentic AI, and they'd done the finance transformation we were looking for, and everything was perfect. Except when I started interviewing the person, I realized that they were not maintaining eye contact. Now that for me is always a red flag, right? Because sometimes it is unconscious bias that you may face. Sometimes you may see the person is not engaged, but this time it was very unusual because the answers were very perfect. I mean, they were perfect to a point that I got into the third question and I realized that this person was actually reading out of an agentic AI prompt. And he was so influenced and so taken in by the language perhaps that was generating that he lost track of the content, and he actually answered a question which was around finance transformation and he gave an absolutely different answer. And that for me was sad also for the individual because they probably came with a lot of experience. They probably were a really good candidate otherwise also, but this time it was AI that actually became a little bit of a stumbler for them. So I would say cautiously excited, lots of excitement about AI. As you know, 74% of the CXOs want generative AI. There's a big leapfrog in the industry. There's lots of acceleration happening. And we are, of course, also building many, many use cases on the customer side.
Well, thank you. Some great examples that paint the complete picture. For those of us who've been at ENRich over yesterday and today, I think as you connect dots between many sessions, some of what Akhilesh called out and highlighting the rogue agent, the criticality of the human in the loop, I think, Varsha, your examples really brought that alive. In fact, we ran a survey with NASSCOM across GCCs on the top risks that they're all getting challenged by. Emerging technology, much as it is an opportunity, was highlighted as one of those. It was a second risk. The first was talent. Second was emerging technology, to say let's adopt with caution and steer this journey carefully as we go through it, because you've got to think of the long haul. You have to integrate it, pull it together meaningfully. I'm conscious of time. I have two other questions which I want to get your responses, and we'll go through this very quickly. A GCC theme topic is not complete without talking about talent. And talent, like I just called out, is while the biggest opportunity before India, it's also the #1 risk, because we've got to make sure our talent is relevant. When you look and think 2 years out, the talent we're going to need then is not what you're necessarily carrying today. So how are we keeping pace, and what are those risks? How are we dealing with it? And in that context, again, would like to get both your views on the preparedness from a workforce perspective to deal with this future and creating the nerve center that we're talking about. Yes, sir.
I think from our perspective, hiring that kind of talent and retaining them is a real issue, what we realized. So we have to start taking the help from the outsourcing chain as much as possible, and we will be relying on our service provider or the vendors on that side. But at the same time, I think we have enough talent which we keep motivating them to improve their kind of skill and the knowledge and through the various trainings, so that they will be able to take the service what we want. I think that itself, it's like going to a general physician, that where you have to then go to the expert. I think that itself is sometimes becomes a real challenge. So if you are in a position to have a good physician with you, probably you will be going to the kind of the specialist doctor then, right, on that side. Apart from that, I think we all will need to be kind of at least some literacy in this area. Yes. Otherwise, I think it will be difficult for all of us. Just for a few seconds, I think cyber attacks had been a very big concern, and especially when during the Operation Sindoor we had faced in the grid. That was also. So we, as our generators, well, as a power generator, we don't even keep those generating sets online. Yeah. So this is a standalone basis. Just to share with you that it's a kind of completely, the grid is different, but as far as the generating sets are there, we have taken care of those, and that is based on the experience that if there is something problem.
Thank you. In fact, it reminds me, we go a whole circle. You go through technology, and then the evolution is so sophisticated, subject to risk, that you come back to some of the manual old ways of doing things. I've seen places where the thumb imprint is coming back because of how digital signatures could...
That is one thing. Yeah. The second thing is, don't rely when it comes to the safety.
Yes.
So the safety you have to see from your own eyes rather than depending on that.
Varsha, from a talent perspective, your thoughts?
Thank you. So I am going to recover my position with my consulting friends and talk about a 6C approach.
Okay.
I know that's a C too many. But I think from a talent point of view, communication, 1C, change, preparing people for change, adapting for change. Connectedness, creating that sense of connectivity which actually, increases the ability to have better outcomes. Collaboration, industry partnerships, academia, universities, and I'm now struggling with my six C's, and I'll come to which is why I said one too many, but I will come to the one that really resonates with me, and that's culture.
Yeah.
Okay? And I think we've all, often heard this term, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I can assure you that this is one thing that will keep us relevant. And this is the one thing, if we don't focus on, will make us very, very irrelevant. And I will just make one plug, because I know that Anish knows that I will never come to a session and not talk about a gender push, shamed with no shame actually, shamelessly is what the word I'm looking for, is the energy sector and the GCCs can be the accelerator for change, for gender ambition, and that's not because it's a good thing to do, it's because it's good business. And we know that 26% more revenue is generated in companies which have more diverse boards, which have more diverse management teams. And I think today, in our GCC, in the BTC, in BP, we are really using this to drive and accelerate gender balance. We have moved from 26% to 40% just with concerted effort. We had all the excuses given to us. Talent does not exist, women are not there in STEM, women don't like engineering, etc., etc., etc. If you make up your mind and you decide that you will do it, it will happen, and it cannot happen with one company. It has a whole ecosystem. I'm already pleased that I'm not the only person in the room, which was probably 5 years ago, who was not in a dark suit, but it's not just about color and vibrancy. It's about diversity of thoughts. It's about resonating with your customers, the demographics, the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas. Have a conversation with your daughter, your teenage daughter. They will reject your ideology. And if we don't create this gender balance, we will not be in the future relevant to our energy consumers. With that, I will make it a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you, Varsha. Well said. And I think with that, between our two esteemed panelists, I think we've covered a whole host of subjects. As I bring this to a very, very quick wrap, we've spoken about the evolution of the journey for the uninitiated in the room. You've heard and listened firsthand to what NTPC has gone through, what their unified shared services has achieved, to what BP at its scale globally is working towards. We've talked about technology and how one is leveraging that. Honestly, a session like this can only cover so much in 50 minutes. Next year, next ENRich, Anish, we need more time on the subject. But there is so much, and we have only scratched the surface. As you look at the GCC model going forward, we have a very exciting road ahead. So for everyone listening in, jump on the bandwagon, look at what the GCC model and the shared services model presents to you, because the opportunity is significant. And that's going to make the difference. As you reimagine your energy enterprise, making that impact is what this model is going to enable you to do. With that, we'll bring our session to a wrap. I don't know if we have any questions in the audience, a couple, if anyone has any thoughts, would love to, if Anish will allow us that.
We are a little tight on time.
One
but
question I
that's
saw.
a good problem to have, actually, after such a conversation. We know why it was, but let's take a couple very quick ones. Yeah, just take the mic, and be very, very brief, please.
Having listened to the learned speakers, I can only comment. It's not a question, but someone in the SHRM, the CEO of Society of Human Resources Management, he gave a beautiful equation. He said AI plus HI is equal to ROI. So that is the crux. Thank you.
Good one.
Well said.
Thank you.
Hari.
Well said.
Just pass the mic back, please.
My name is Hari Hegde, and my question is not to dampen the GCC spirit, but let me quickly connect a couple of dots that's mentioned here. GCC, as you mentioned, Shalini, is essentially a subsidiary of your US headquartered corporation. And emergence of GCC is essentially a function of the decision that corporation takes in sourcing and the kind of work. That is, when you say techno-function.
That's right.
That's actually resulted in the emergence of GCC from work moving from third party to GCCs, right? Now, that's one piece. The second bit is earlier yesterday, I think it was mentioned that huge amount of research is moved to China. Manufacturing is already moved to China. And now it's a question of the headquarters. In such a scenario, how do you see the GCCs, the threat to GCCs or risk to GCCs in a, say, next 10-year kind of a time horizon?
So 10 years is a very long time frame. I'm not even going to attempt it. But I would say in the next 5 years, we're going to see some changes for sure. I'm not touching as much on the manufacturing side. Part of what we're seeing on the tariff regime is actually addressing that. The protectionist measures there are precisely addressing the manufacturing issues. From a services perspective, and like I said, you must have heard about the new act that the US is working on outsourcing.
Shalini, can I intervene for a minute?
Yeah.
See, the second point that I mentioned about emergence of GCC is also a function of how much of core gets insourced and gets done by GCCs, right?
Yes.
In the sense technical research and so on.
Yeah.
Now, I'm putting this question in the context of if whole lot of research is moving into China and hence lot of core technology is going to emerge out of China, if that is the implication, what's its implication into GCCs in India? That's my question.
Okay, understand. And I would actually look at the piece on whole lot of research moving to China. I know we were talking about the presentation we saw yesterday on IP and how we saw the stats on the university and where the research is happening. I would say there is a whole report also available on the research happening within GCCs in India. If you look at the engineering research side of GCCs, it's the fastest emerging GCC subsegment. I'm not now referring only to energy, I'm looking at across industry segments. So the amount of engineering research that's happening in India is not something you can ignore, it's quite significant. And the GCC story goes way beyond just insourcing from third party. It is as much about how are global organizations leveraging technology to actually drive innovation from within. So I would just say that for now, but more than happy to have an offline conversation. I would say there's a lot happening within GCCs in India on the research side.
And can I, if you don't mind, add something to your question on the headquarter? I mean, I'll just give a BP example. We used to have, before the GCC was set up, 2 group level leaders of BP based out in India. In the last 4 years, we have at least 7. That means 7 people who are reporting, who are tier 3, and we now also have, by the way, tier 3 leaders and tier 4 leaders, decision makers, global role owners, sitting in Pune. So there is a shift in the operating model on actually how is the headquarter also viewed.
Correct.
And I think that's where the GCCs will remain relevant. If you have the decision makers, you have the decision making authorities, and you have the influence and the seat of the table. And that's shifting,
Absolutely.
but not yet reached its full potential.
Yeah, 6,500 global roles in India is projected to go to 30,000 by 2030. But that's for another topic, another time.
I'm so sorry.
No, absolutely. With that, we will wrap this up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a brilliant discussion. Varsha, you made a observation yesterday. We couldn't change it this time, but next time we'll see the change. And she also made that comment on diversity, which I think we have to work harder on. I cannot for a moment say that we have done our part, so I will admit to it as much as anything else. These are a couple of personalized things which I'm sure you'll enjoy keeping. While we were coming towards the conclusion, we were talking about culture. And culture is such a big part of this. If we really have to make it work, we will have to get the culture transformation going in earnest. And that's our next panel. May I request Anvesha to come up on stage and invite her panelists, please.
Anish? Hello. Yeah. Thanks, Anish. So I think Varsha should have been on my panel because I think she spoke a lot about culture, and culture indeed eats strategy for breakfast, and this is what we are going to be discussing today. So yesterday we heard that how technology is absolutely essential in problem analysis and building solutions, as well as finally, ensuring outcomes. But the question is that is technology enough? Without the right culture, honestly, all the transformation that we can plan may not go through. But what is culture? What do we mean by culture? Is it only about collaboration, or is it something more? Is it about creating that psychological safety net, for your employees to be able to take risk, to innovate? Is that essential for the kind of disruption that we are facing, right now? So to discuss this and more, we have a very eminent set of, panelists from PSUs and private players, and I would love to invite them on the stage. So Ms. Rashmi Govil, Director HR, IOCL. Welcome, Ms. Govil. Welcome. Be careful. And the order in which your photograph is on the screen. Yeah. Mr. Atul Bali, Director, National Smart Grid Mission. Mr. Sushil Baveja, CHRO, Jindal Stainless. My colleague and partner, Surbjit Laroya-Annan from KPMG in the UK, CS&P People Corps. So we're going to go straight off the bat. I think, not a happy place to be between lunch and, the previous session, but hopefully we can keep the pace sharp and make it more implementation focused and tackle the how part of it rather than the what part of it, which already got discussed today. But the what part of it is important for context setting. So would love to hear your views on what does good organization culture look like. And it can be a single sentence, it can be a few words, just to get your perspective. Starting off with you first, Ms. Govil.
So thank you, Anvesha and Team KPMG for having me here. It's a delight to be a part of this esteemed panel. For me, for an organization, a culture of trust and a culture of openness would be two vital components. And where I'm coming from is we have all heard the Tata story, like even the customers trust Tatas because the organization believes, its ethos believes in trust. So for me, trust and openness, because openness then leads to a lot of, the organization will be open to innovation, open to listening, open to growth. So trust and openness are two key culture ingredients that I would be looking for in an organization.
Absolutely. Mr. Bali, you next.
Namaskar. And to start with, definitely I am just stuck up in between this HR, rather doyens, and I am from technical side. लेकिन अभी पिछले सेशन से मैं कनेक्ट करूँ तो I was just recollecting. They were talking AI, HI, everything, and that also relates to culture. महाभारत के शांति पर्व में एक श्लोक आता है, ना राज्यम ना राज्यासीत ना दंडको ना चा दांडिका धर्मणेव रक्षणीय स्व परस्पर. अर्थात basically it's the righteousness and mutual respect and altogether harmony that guides. Otherwise we don't need kings and kingdom. And I think culture, because that all is coming down through ages to us, and I think culture is the essence of that. We are talking of connectedness, everything like that in the previous session or otherwise. I think that is the basis of all that. And if I talk from cultural sense, from the PSU perspective, which I am having from Power Grid side or from the National Smart Grid Mission, I think as of that, and that is, I think, first is the integrity and the belongingness to the company. That defines everything. That comes next one. So that is my mission.
Superb. And love the, quotations from Mahabharata. I think it was amazing. So the shlokas, sorry.
So, Mr. Baveja, you next.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. You know, coming in from an HR domain, I would always have a bias towards people. So I will say that, you know, what really stands out as part of the culture is your people centricity. It is all about how valued you're making your people feel in the organization, how accepted do they feel, how compassionate and considerate the organization is. I think these elements become very, very crucial in driving employee engagement, which obviously has a huge business impact. That's what I would say.
Great. Surbjit?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. And I've noticed I've had to sort of really dial up my Hindi skills. So forgive me, but I'm trying to think and translate in my head. So for me, culture, I think I echo much of what my panelists, fellow panelists are also saying. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer out there. I think it always requires a blend of all the traits. So I'll quote some of the KPMG cultural traits out there as well. So integrity, courage, collaboration, all those things are only there if we have trust in the first place. So with innovation as well, I think that creates this sort of great opportunity to have a super culture within an organization, and that's what I'd love to talk a little bit more about through today's session.
So I think the strong underlying kind of, I think, factor coming through is trust, I would say, and openness. And that leads me to the first question to you, Ms. Govil. You know, coming from a PSU where you have large organizations, huge legacies, also very strong hierarchies, how do you build that trust? How do you create that psychological safety net for employees to speak up, to take risks, to innovate, and to say that it's okay to fail? How do you do that?
So the way I look at it is, to first of all have psychological safety, you should understand what causes psychological anxiety or stress or uncertainty. And to that extent, see, I'll quote an example from our own sector, which is oil and gas sector. Now, there's so much of talk which we heard about green energy, energy transition, AI, ML. Now, all these buzzwords for an organization which grows its own timber, we will, like we say, from crib to the grave, the employees stay with us. For such a set of workforce where you have recruited for a fossil fuel business, which may not be there 20 years down the line, they may be doing something absolutely different. So, the level of freedom that we give for people to learn, to reskill, to upskill, and the platforms that we make, those, facilitations in the system is what kind of gives us an edge in people believing in us, that the company is looking at our welfare. They are looking at us to be growing and to be remaining relevant with the times and with the organization. And that itself, this culture of learning, the culture of reinventing themselves, the culture of upskilling themselves, and we have so many ways and means to do it, is what gives the employees a footing, a stronghold that yes, I can take in any challenge. I can take in anything that comes my way because the company is preparing. I'll give you a quote. Benjamin Franklin once very famously said that if you fail to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So that's how we say that we tell our employees that you have to be prepared for the future, and we are there hand in hand with you, preparing you for that future. And that what gives trust to the employees in us, in the management, that yes, the management cares for us. They want us to remain relevant with the times. So we can, going forward, discuss how we do that. But this is like what my take on creating a psychological safety net is, that you keep your employees absolutely on the go, relevant, except let them reinvent, let them fail, let them innovate.
I think that's a very relevant point, and I was reading a book by Daniel Coyle, and this is exactly the point that he made, that to be able to drop that organizational messages and make it very personal, to say that we are there for you and we hear you and we are invested in your future. These are some of the most important things for creating that psychological safety net, that okay, I'm not going to be left stranded once the disruption happens. And not only ask them to prepare, but also say that it's okay if you fail, right? We'll get up and start again. So I think extremely relevant points. Thank you for that. So I'm just going to ask Mr. Bari if you have any points in continuation to what Ms. Govil said.
Yeah, because actually I am part of an organization that started in 91, that is Power Grid. And I think the Power Grid came into existence by amalgamating different organizations' transmission business. One was NHPC, NTPC, NEEPCO, and NLC. And amalgamation of all them into you can say a monolith, which is Power Grid now, is a Maharatna. So that demands a culture, and I think in that process, the journey which I've been transforming altogether this transmission sector, I think in that respect, one part is the part of decision making, the participative management, and I think that has been reflected over the years. And the business in which the Power Grid is in, that is involving too much of technology. And as we all know, maintaining one nation, one grid, one frequency, and with all those cybersecurity challenges and everything like that, availability of 99.5% and among the top of the world, that demands, I think, the cohesiveness, and cohesiveness comes from continuous learning. And I think that learning and participative management, I think that is where, and everybody is connected to a singular goal. Because I would say nowadays, the Maharatnas, even the top PSU, they coming under the bracket that they have the enough resources of the perks and packages. Now they need to have the belongingness, the connectedness, and the youth which is coming on. They're not too much bothered about the money and other things that is coming naturally to them. They wanted to connect it to a purpose, belongingness, and their contribution, so that they are part of that particular successful journey. I think that is, I can relate to that.
Yes, absolutely. So the grid integration going to the employee integration, the cohesiveness, no, absolutely. And that's the philosophy that carries through. So Mr. Baveja, you've spoken, I've watched a few of your videos. You've spoken about the importance of preserving the human touch, even as organizations embrace digital. But what is this human touch, and how do you ensure that this happens and employees don't feel threatened, with digital adoption? How are you doing it?
Well, what really matters is that whenever you're trying to drive digital adoption in the organization, you should be very clear in terms of the value proposition of digital. What are you actually trying to drive there? And at the heart of any digital journey is the journey of driving employee experience. So that is the biggest human element in it. So initially they feel that, what is the value add? I mean, what difference is this going to make to me or to the organization? But when you are able to demonstrate the value proposition of the journey of digital adoption, or AI for that matter, or agentic AI, anything, in terms of each unique stakeholder segment. So, so there is a generic value proposition that digital has, but at the same time, you have to be very precise in articulating value proposition for each unique stakeholder segment, for the employee, for the manager, for the leader. What difference does it make? I'm sure, half the fear goes away when they actually listen to the whole story. That's one. The real worry sometimes, I keep hearing about in forums like this and elsewhere is around AI, will that make human redundant? Will the human touch go away from there? I'll give you two examples where we have actually, kind of driven digital adoption and where we've kind of adopted AI also to a certain extent. So one is the performance management process. And let's understand, in the entire HR life cycle, the most pivotal process is the PMS process, because everything is linked to it. My growth, my career, my rewards, everything is related to that. So we have put all of that on a technology platform like Darwinbox for that matter. So right from your goal setting to the performance feedback, everything is captured there. Now that is a digital part of it. Now the human element is the feedback, the conversations that you have. They are so important. I mean, you can't leave, just the data on the digital platform and leave it there. You have to continuously, on a regular basis, on an ongoing basis, need to be having that conversation with the people, appreciating them, giving a constructive feedback, letting them see what changes can they make in terms of course correction, so that, at the end of the year, there are no surprises. So that element is extremely important. The other element where we brought in AI is, in the way you actually measure the pulse of the organization. So we have a ENPS framework, okay? We roll out an employee net promoter study, and we look at these ENPS scores regularly. Now what happens is that the ENPS, the AI actually helps us, frame the questions, gets it delivered, runs all analysis, tells you, what's going well, what's not going well. But the real human element comes in is in your ability to get insights out of it, your ability to get significant messages. So what we do as a next step is, after we've got that data, we conduct focus group discussions, in small segments. So let's say we got a feedback that our youngsters, particularly in that 20-25 age group, or newcomers who are just 2-3 years in the organization for that matter, their ENPS score is not so great as compared to the rest. So we said, okay, this is the segment where we need to be approaching them and we should conduct focus group discussions. Because a real data point comes in when you have those conversations and, people open up and tell you a lot more, which an AI tool may not be able to actually tell you. And, the human story, so every organization has two elements, actually. There's a rational element. I'm sorry, I'm stretching it a little bit, but I thought I must explain to you. And I've always stood by that particular belief, is that there is a rational part of the organization, and then there is, the emotional part of the organization. And the rational part is all built around systems, processes, policies, jobs, careers, and stuff like that. And the emotional part is around, how well are you taking care of your people? How connected are you with your people? How do you make them feel respected and wanted? And let me tell you, we all join careers, we all join jobs taking into account rational considerations. But the decision to stay long term is always driven by emotional considerations more than anything else. So that's where the value of human touch is, I would say.
That's so brilliant. I just love the point on the, I think we've been speaking about this, but to have it articulated like that, talking about the rational and the emotional side, that's so spot on, because without that human factor, as you said, coming in, I'm not sure if it can only be just data and analysis which are going to really drive employees. So Surbjit, I'm going to come to you, and you are seeing a lot of global developments. You're seeing the interplay between AI and, of course, the human factor. A lot of digital pilots are somehow, not being successful, and I would imagine that one of the key reasons is, the human touch. In fact, that maybe there is some issue on the culture aspects. What's your observation there? Why is this happening?
So it's a very, very now question. So we get asked this question every single week across the partnership in the UK, across our global firms, and every time I speak to some of our global leaders, I'm also learning. So I think the biggest learning here is everybody is on a journey. Everybody is working out how to do this. So how do they, integrate AI at scale and create the right culture to be able to embrace and create the right workforce to be able to work together with AI is a wonderful question, and also a really pivotal time where we are right now. So I was reflecting on the question and looking at some of my colleagues across some of our accounts. Well, first of all, what I notice here, this is a leadership thing, right? So in this room right now, I'm blessed to be here with all of you as great leaders. This is not a HR thing. This is an everyone thing. So it is our opportunity as leaders, first of all to lean in and understand what does this mean for us, and how do we need to show up to be able to allow our workforce to embrace this new change. So that is something that we're all leaning in and thinking about. I think it's also moving beyond just individual use cases and moving across the enterprise. So everybody loves a single purpose, a vision, a very clear picture, and we're all trying to paint that picture at the moment. But I was listening to one of our global AI leads the other day, and he really got me thinking, and he said, the future of an enterprise is a platform-based business, digital, AI, enabled through a load of data. And to enable all of that to work, we have a workforce of humans and agents that all work together as part of an ecosystem. So it doesn't matter whether you are a BP, a Shell, a grid, a national grid, or the equivalent here in India. Everyone actually has the opportunity to really start thinking bigger and more creative around all of those aspects. So that's the first thing. How do we sell it internally to us as a leadership team? How do we embrace it? And then how do we support our team, our colleagues, our employees to sort of work within that ecosystem? Because quite fundamentally, it changes the roles that we all have around us. We don't know some of the roles and skills and capabilities that are going to be needed for the future, but it's our mindset that's going to be able, that growth mindset that's going to enable us to get there in the future. So to answer your question, how do we scale? I think it does require all leaders to lean in and understand the bigger opportunity. It's also leaning in on, okay, how do we then work as an ecosystem amongst that new operating model? Agents, humans together at the heart. And then what behaviors is it going to require from all of us to enable that adoption? Because quite frankly, in the future, the jobs that exist today are still going to continue to evolve. And therefore, we need an agile and continuous way of supporting, understanding what those skills and capabilities are going to be for the future, and how do we upskill people in real time to enable to adapt.
So I think there's a little bit of a common thread between what you said and Mr. Baveja said, and I found that extremely intriguing, the fact, and this is across, like I have read behavioral science as well, and how do you create that interest factor, that self-interest? How do you cater to that? Mr. Baveja spoke about the fact that when you're trying to create that transformation, you have to align that conversation to the interest of that particular stakeholder. And in a way, even you've said that, right? That you have to create, what's in it for them in a way, right? And somebody in the audience also said, human plus AI is ROI. So that needs to come in. People, it may not be just ROI, but what's the benefit of bringing in digital for that stakeholder group? I think that acceptance has to come in for, all the resistance, probably some resistance, whatever is there for digital transformation to be addressed. So I think absolutely right and bang on. And I'm going to turn back to Mr. Bali. You spoke about collaboration, and somewhere even from what, Surbjit said, the collaboration, of course, she talked about collaboration across the organization between business leaders, CHRO. You've spoken about, having a cohesive approach as well. The author Daniel Coyle in his book Cultural Code has also talked about how high-performing groups don't necessarily succeed because they are high-performing, but because they have a culture of collaboration. The question is how? How do you get that going?
I just want to add one more thing in this respect. First, the stakeholder must know what they are going to achieve, what is the target. And when we talk even the AI and other things what has been talked about, why that is needed. Since I come from a transmission background and also looking after the smart grid perspective altogether, in that respect, huge data is coming, humongous data. And that data is not, we can't handle that through with the own human intelligence. That needs something more to arrive at certain insights. For that, we need to have the AI and everything coming into picture. But of course, as we always know that there's a very famous quote that it's not the gun that fires, it's the man behind that. So we should be very much clear about the objectives. And we talk about the collaboration, other things, of course, that is the essence of that. Without collaboration, nothing would happen. And everybody should know the strengths and weaknesses of theirs. And when they are collaborating, they are getting to achieve something more. As they said, 1 + 1 is not 2, it's 11. So that is the first thing we should know, and where we can add on value. And when you talk of how we can do that, so we can very well do it when we know our strengths, and as we know the corporate buzz, thought, and everything we do. So we have to really consider in that respect with the AI as well. And AI has a different thing as well. We know the AI has a deep learning as well as AI has even the base of that is basically the data center and everything coming into that. We need to have the data lake where everything would be merging into that. So I think from that perspective, when you said how means we should be clear about the objective, we should clear about the targets and what value add I can create.
and have the peer-to-peer interface and learning. That is, I think, the essence through which we are achieving. And one is the corporate life, what we have. I've been fortunate and would travel through that path. And now the DISCOM perspective, when I have from smart metering, what I have been doing as a Director Energy, I'm supporting ministry in the largest smart metering implementation experience of 250 million meters. And nearly 4 crore has already been installed. Now to get out of that, DISCOM have, one DISCOM is like Gujarat, one can be, you can say Assam, one can be UP, Bihar, another thing. So everyone is at different trajectory. And to have that, everybody has to define their path, their objective, where they are standing, on what resources they have, and then coming on to that, what best practices I can adopt. So I would add to add, because these should be a clear insight, clear vision, and the peer-to-peer learning. That, I think, that is the way to achieve the objectives.
Absolutely. You have to define the objectives and align, but I would also like to hear Ms. Govil's view. I mean, IOCL being such a large organization, objectives, targets, alignment of different factions and different groups aside, how do you make it happen? Is it about KPIs finally or something more?
So whenever we talk of, how are you going to handle transition, new technologies? Now for an organization which has been 60 plus years around, we have seen a lot of change. We have seen a lot of new things coming in. We have been very adaptive and we have been very successful at that. And the bottom line that is a common thread in all these changes that has stood us strong is we work a lot on the what part. Like, see, for instance, now I'm handling a workforce of 30,000 which only knows fossil fuel. Now tomorrow this entire 30,000 may be handling energy transition or maybe green hydrogen or maybe solar energy or whatever. So what we say, we go back to the business and we look into the environment and say what skills would be required to, let's say, get a solar farm going in this many days. What kind of engineering skills, what kind of commercial skills, what kind of sales skills would be required, and we document them. And we document them in a very, very comprehensive framework which we call technical competency framework, which we will say that how much of it would be in an advanced way, how much it would be at the basic level, how much would be at intermediate level, and how much would be required at an expert level. Then once we have had this documentation of skilling done, we try to look at the people competencies. What are the people available with the skill set that are required, or what are the people gaps that are there in the skilling system that require to be fulfilled. And once this mapping is done, then from there on, it's a very easy game because we have, first of all, spent a lot of time on the what part. And when you have your what very clearly, you also know what you need to train on. You also know what inputs you need from the academia, what you need from maybe consultants, what you need from energy experts. The what has the time, the amount of time spent on the what is like a battle half won. And that is probably that has, given us a good understanding of how to go about a change and how to process the change that we are looking at and the window in which we are looking at that.
Absolutely. So before the how, get into the what in detail, and that will tell you the how, essentially. All right. I'm going to shift gears and pivot a bit and, talk about Gen Z, Gen Alpha, all the future generations with their various Greek alphabets that are coming through. Mr. Baveja, you're from Jindal Stainless, manufacturing segment. It's gone through, the whole segment, I think industry has gone through an era where, it was seen as somewhat not so glamorous, I would say, by the, new generation. But I see that changing, I see that changing. It's now, there is some excitement that, when I have conversations, I can see that's coming in. Why is this happening and how have you managed to achieve that?
Well, I think everybody sees the way manufacturing sector is growing, and this has been like one of the most stable, steady sectors. And end of the day, the talent that you're trying to attract to the organization looks for stability. That's the first starting point. But that is only, that's just one element of it. Manufacturing sector has evolved a lot in terms of its various elements because it generally is contributing to the GDP and it sees that there is a huge opportunity there and it would need talent to drive that kind of a growth. So if you look at manufacturing sector, let's say 3 decades back, and you see manufacturing today, every single element of that sector has evolved in terms of leadership. If you look at the culture there, if you look at the people practices, if you look at, the investments that it is making on the technology side. And these elements, at the end of the day matter hugely to anybody who's looking at manufacturing. I'll give you an example. I mean, earlier, we used to struggle to get a day 1 or a day 2 slot at a campus. Today, we are offered day minus and day zeros because they see that, this organization ticks all the boxes. So when you look at leadership, so is your leadership contemporary? Is your leadership progressive? Is your leadership professional? Do you offer space, empowerment to your people to learn, grow, contribute? I think that matters. That has, I would say, changed, in a huge manner. If you look at the organizations earlier, the kind of hierarchies that you had today, that is all broken today if you look at manufacturing sectors. And I'm talking about organizations which have evolved, which have progressed, which are absolutely professional. So today things are becoming a lot more open, a lot more transparent. Leadership is easily accessible. The hierarchical structure that we used to have, it's all broken now today. And that is something which matters. When it comes to, let's say, a culture, so the culture has become a lot more focused on driving skills, capabilities, just like I mentioned a little while back around psychological safety, and I was listening to her very carefully. Very, very important, I would say. The kind of investment today the organizations are making in terms of making employees feel relevant through the focus on reskilling and upskilling, I think that's humongous. And that is actually becoming a big, big attraction. And a big piece is around technology. People felt that technology is reserved only for the tech sector, but today technology is driving, change, transformation in manufacturing in a big way. You look at anything for that matter. I just give an example of HR. We have put everything on technology today. So people today, the generation today wants to work with things that are contemporary. They want to work with things that are latest. They want variety in their experiences. Today, manufacturing is able to provide that variety in terms of newer experiences, new knowledge, new skills, so to say. And this is something which is actually making this whole sector attractive. And I'm saying this out of personal experience. I mean, the kind of, retention that we are able to drive of the youngsters in the organization is huge. Another data point I'll give you. Last year, we hired 35 management trainees, Till some years back, the retention rate used to be about 50%. And we were just doing a stock taking after 18 months that 32 guys are still there on board, so nobody's gone from the organization. So that's one data point in terms of they accepting the fact that, they are an integral, part of the organization.
Thanks. No, absolutely. I think being contemporary is definitely what's going to attract the new talent. Surbjit, I'm going to come to you. Author Satya Nadella in his book, Hit Refresh, he's spoken about the learn-it-all, mindset, which is more important than the know-it-all mindset. Of course, easier said than done when you're working in a space where things have been kind of pretty constant for many, 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 many decades. Of course, there's been some change, but not at the rate that we are kind of seeing now. So how do, any advice on how can Indian energy organizations actually adopt a learn-it-all mindset to handle this disruption?
So I think many are actually starting to do that already, and they're doing it through all the things that you're saying. So strategic workforce planning, who do I need, where do I need them, and when do I need them? And then how am I going to bring those skills in at the right time to service all the work that needs to happen? Now that's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, especially as, we've talked a lot about AI. As the AI learns, the role of the human will change. So therefore, the human needs to continuously learn new things, either train the agents or do other activities, other higher value activities continuously. So the sort of leading practice thinking in this space is that actually the role of HR is all about enabling and equipping that continuous learning experience. And with the great advantage of all the technology and all of the different platforms that can create this sort of human-in-the-loop learning experience, so targeted and personalized learning that gets delivered to you as your skills need to be adapted based on the roles that are adapting, that's just part of the ecosystem. So that's what we're seeing as the future, and there's many, many platforms in place already that are starting to do all that. So having integrated skills ontologies as part of the organization, the link with the strategic workforce planning, which is not an annual thing, it's a continuous thing because the AI is getting much more advanced every single day. And therefore, this is what I'm saying, as leaders, we need to be open and very growth focused on the continuous evolution. And we know, we've seen all the stats, MIT research, et cetera, it hasn't necessarily gone to the level that we all predicted at the outset. But I think more and more is coming as more and more learning is happening at the same time. So again, back to the ecosystem. It is going to be this wonderful ecosystem of human, agent, data, technology, bots, everything all working in harmony. So the role of the learning is going to be super, super critical to enable all of us to deliver the work that we need to deliver on. It's also a really exciting proposition from an employee perspective. Doesn't matter what generation. If we all think about our own careers, are we all doing the same jobs that we started out doing? No. I was reflecting when the earlier session was going on, and I thought, my first job as a consultant, and I have been a consultant for the whole of my life, so I apologize right now, but the first job I had was as part of Vodafone. They were embedding SIM cards into Lenovo laptops, so there was a collaboration, and I thought, well, that's gone, right? No one needs that anymore. Look how much that technology has evolved, and that wasn't relatively that long ago. So what I'm trying to say is we all have had to change the way that we work. We've all learned, we are continuously learning, and I think there's a very hungry workforce who want to see that and want to hear about it, and it's up to us to sort of enable how they will achieve that.
And that continuous learning framework itself has to be very, very dynamic, right? And that's where the AI framework also comes in, because while all organizations do in some way have a continuous learning framework, but what is relevant today, even for continuous learning, is not relevant tomorrow. So the framework itself has to be refreshed. No, absolutely. So now I'm going to do, like a couple of quick rapid fire questions, because I have, the organizers telling me that we need to wrap up in the next 5 to 6 minutes. So, but I would love to hear from all of you, what are the key pain points in actually making the transformation happen that you're facing?
So I would say is that leadership blind spots. See, we've been talking so much for the last few hours on culture. Culture is nothing but what the top leadership displays, behaviors displayed by the top leadership. It's a byproduct of the top leadership. So the blind spots which the leadership would have, they may have certain beliefs which may actually not be true at ground level, would be the biggest gap in making things happen. So, the alignment has to be in sync from the top to the bottom. And when you have this alignment, when you understand, when the leadership understands its people, it understands their beliefs and aligns their beliefs to the people's beliefs, it carries the organization along from the smallest speck of the organization to the highest hierarchy. I think that's when things happen. So most of the times I've seen, many times leaders will have these blind beliefs that, oh, we are at a very, very comfortable position, whereas the whole hierarchy may be under a shake-up. So I think that top leadership blind spots
Absolutely.
would be one
and that's a bold statement to make, and that shows that your organization has the psychological safety net. Mr. Bali, very quick comments on pain points.
Yeah, I would say the culture is just like a flow, which is like it's a flow, you can say it's under the current as such. And this is flowing through that. Forms may change, but it is the basic thing as such. And I was just recollecting when you're talking about this learn it and know it all, there is a famous Veda saying, Ano bhadra kratvo yantu vishato dabdaso. Essence is, let be open to the all noble thoughts coming from every quarter. And that is, I think, the essence. Adaptive learning, whatever we talk about. Basically, it should be, we should be open to all, to the everything environment what is we are having at the moment. And I think if we are open to all and we are open to collaboration, I think that is the essence of the culture as such. And with that, I think we can face every challenge and opportunity as there. And we can really transform and reach heights.
So I should come
and
to
I think
you.
I would add more to one more that even we say the ignorance of an intelligent. Because जितना ज़्यादा हम जानते हैं उतना ज़्यादा realize करते हैं हम कुछ नहीं जानते. तो know it all वाली नहीं, learn it all and openness. And we know that we know very little and we have to learn more. Then we have a humility and everything and that make us grow. And I think that is even right for individual, organization, country, nations, world as such. So that is the bottom line, I think.
I have to come to you not only for collaboration lessons but Sanskrit lessons also. ये तो बहुत ज़रूरी है, इसके बिना नहीं होगा. Okay.
So much proving,
No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Mr. Baveja, quick point on pain points.
Yeah, so the quick point is, I think the leadership needs to first accept the fact that everything has a shelf life. Okay, culture also has a shelf life. And it is time that we should, in our journey of growth, be taking a pause to reflect, to introspect, and see what's going well for us and what could be improved for that matter. I think that is a starting point. I see leaders today struggle to take that time, to take a pause, to reflect and introspect. I think that is the big barrier today.
I think pausing and reflecting is a problem or a requirement for all of us. Honestly, I think the pace at which we go, sometimes we fail to do that. Surbjit, yeah.
I will also echo, it is all about leadership. Again, I was talking with another colleague yesterday evening about a challenge we have at an energy client where they're trying to go through a large transformation, and the biggest problem in enabling that transformation to actually get going and be successful and achieve its outcomes is all about the how, not the what. We are brilliant at the what. And as a consultant, I can say we are brilliant at writing things down and showing you what it could be. But actually implementing something and achieving the outcome is the hard bit. Now, as leaders, everybody has individual traits, different personalities, great strengths with that, but also everybody has probably areas that individually we're all working on. And that's great, right? The ability to continuously learn and continuously evolve as we grow up, as we continue our careers is a great asset. But the real powerful thing is working as a team, because it's the collection of all those individuals and that the way that they come together to solve a problem is what is going to actually help to achieve the outcome. And that's what, like my scenario yesterday evening, we're sort of speculating and trying to help the client work through, well, you've got this set of individuals here, you're not all aligned, but actually you as an individual are really great at this. You as an individual are really great at something else. If you put that power together, you can actually achieve this. But often leaders don't spend enough time really thinking through how they're going to do that and how they're going to work that through together. And it often becomes, and it is a very lonely place to be a leader, because everybody has their personal agendas, everyone's trying to achieve something, we're all very senior people. But the ability to take time as a leadership team and think that through collectively is not to be underestimated.
Absolutely. Leverage the diversity in the team. Also, you know the what's, you're going to the how. Ma'am is still, kind of, there are too many what's. I think both of you need to get together. So a final question for the panelists. Sorry.
Can I intervene? Because you have called me the organizer. It seems like a conference bureau, but since this is running out of time,
34 seconds
you
left.
need the time to felicitate your fantastic panel, Anvesha. So I would request you to draw this to a close.
Okay, sure, I will.
Yeah,
I will. So I'm going to thank all of you. I don't think Anish is going to let me even summarize, but I think fantastic discussion. I think we touched upon a lot of things. We touched upon collaboration. We touched upon how you create an environment where employees feel safe to experiment. We talked about the need to delve very deep into what's, and that will show us how to get to hows. We talked about some of the blind spots that leadership may have which could get in the way, and that needs to be addressed. And also always kind of nurturing a spirit of curiosity and continuous learning, which is extremely important to get the culture transition in. And with that, I would love to felicitate my amazing panelists. Sorry to cut this short, but you can blame Anish.
Now, it was indeed an amazing panel. I think it's just a build-up which has been happening since morning. So when we talked about technology, we talked about structure, which was about what shared services is leading to, and then we talked about culture. That's all threaded together. That's how we had imagined these sessions, and that's how it's turning out to be. It need not have, but it's only because we have such wonderful people and such wonderful panels that we did it. And Anvesha said that she's not going to summarize, but did anybody notice? Did anybody notice? Okay. Now, I'm going to borrow 15 minutes from your lunch because we had run a contest where we encouraged our younger talent through a hackathon to come up with new ideas. And we have awarded 2 of them. So 5 minutes each, and then there's a third idea which came from India, a team which didn't think that the hackathon was worth their time, but now have great FOMO and have requested for time. So over to you, Shreyansh, to anchor this. Shreyansh leads our AI and energy campaign apart from the other stuff he does. So Shreyansh, start up, please.
Hello. Yeah. Thanks, Anish, for this. And I'll request, please put up the slide which talks about the overview. So while that comes up, I'll quickly take this opportunity for the audience to know how the story of this hackathon unfolded. And it started back in January this year, where so we formed a cohort. We call it AI for Energy cohort, which is good 80 members strong. And people joining this cohort, these 80 members are coming from more than 20 member firms of ours across. You take the name from Australia to US, all the member firms have representations over there. The need for this particular cohort was because we were seeing a lot of good work happening at various clients in the ENR sector on the field of AI, where real client problems were getting solved, real client discussions were being addressed, right? So we wanted to bring that knowledge together and keep a monthly connect in which we discuss how these problems are getting solved. And that was the push behind this cohort to get formed. In this cohort, we used to do a monthly connect to talk about the ideas, which are our alliances, which are the startups which are coming up, right? And how the solutions are evolving, how are we solving those problems. Then going forward, in the month of June, we decided that because of a lot of this good work happening in pockets and these problems coming in, how do we enhance them further? And that's where we ideated a hackathon, which is focused specifically on agentic AI. And we got 20 plus client problems which were to be solved. 60 odd brains were collectively solving for these 20 ideas, and they were from 20 different countries. Then we came up with the 5 priority ideas, and you can see these 5 priority ideas on the aisle outside, where we are having this AI for Energy Bay, and we are displaying all the 5 ideas. The ideas were prioritized on 5 aspects: innovation, relevance, scalability, sustainability, and the value prop, which is the ROI. Right? Now, on these 5 ideas that we see, regulatory compliance agent, strategic procurement optimization agent, smart operations agent, which is around asset maintenance, cybersecurity assurance agent, and finally a chief of staff agent, which is working basically for your AI over BI, right? We'll showcase only 2 today because these 2 are the winners, the top 2 priority ideas. I will request Garrett and Avinash to please come on stage to talk about the first idea on the regulatory compliance agent.
Excellent. Thank you, Shreyansh. Thank you, Anish. Thank you for calling us young talent. I don't feel that young most days. So quick background, we do a lot of work within the tariff determination space, and one of the major challenges that we find with this event is that it's time consuming, it's a lot of documents that need to be consumed, so we're typically talking about 5,000 to 10,000 pages at least needing to be consumed. And then there's always the question of evolving regulation. So some of the things that the commissions are asking for did not exist as part of the prior rate determination. And so what we did is we originally built a prompt response model that allowed us to deal with the massive volume of data with full transparency, citations, and fact-checking. And as we did that, we realized that there were additional issues that our clients were dealing with. Things like jurisdictional knowledge that could not be easily transferred because it was gained over 15, 20, 25 years. Other one is the ability to use junior employees to do high-value work. And so we think about how do we use our college graduates more effectively as opposed to doing menial tasks and only getting to the point where they're doing high-value stuff in 10 years. And so as part of that, we then stepped into an agentic process. And the agentic opportunity here is instead of prompt response, copy, one at a time, we've built an agentic framework that allows us to ask all of the regulatory questions, testimonial, expert witness, rebuttal questions all at once, and then bounce those against not only company data, but also public data from other peer companies that have gone through similar processes. And so where the process went from prompt response one at a time, over a series of days and weeks, which is much more efficient than the prior process, it can now be executed in sequence in a matter of minutes or hours, depending on the depth of the data.
Thanks, Garrett. As the slide is coming up, we've spoken about different kinds of AI. So very quickly, what agentic AI really is able to offer. And let's take a very commonly understood example of when you are planning a trip and you have to perform different activities, whether it's researching for the itinerary, looking up for flights, looking up for hotels, making payments. These are all different tasks. And there are three things that you see, what you're able to do through an agentic AI system here. First, you are performing tasks autonomously through these agents. The second one is these agents interact with each other to perform a common objective of planning your trip. And thirdly, you are taking certain decisions, whether you are relying on AI to take those decisions or you are being the human in the loop, whether it's a significant decision you would want to be involved. And that's essentially what we have done with this, where you can now have data requests, information requests, research requests that come from clients through different systems. You have agents that can take that in, that can identify the right kind of agent that could solve your problem. You then have agents that can do deep research, draft perspectives. These are your classic LLM models where you're using generative AI to do research, very complex agents. You can then have a quality check where AI checks if you can give it a checklist to say that everything that you are looking for is done. And finally, you have agents that can automatically communicate. So draft an email with you with your deliverables, whether it's PPT, whether it's a Word document. There are a few design principles that have gone into creating this. One is, of course, we have built this out in a secure environment so that whether it's client-sensitive data, it can be easily maintained. We also have a feature where you need not even transfer the data from the client system into our systems. You can work directly with client data systems file structures. This is very modular and scalable. Modular in the sense you can take these agents and put them in an entirely different workflow and they would still work. So once done, you can use them across different workflows. These are scalable because the way we have designed these agents, they are through natural language. So these are not your intense code solutions. Within a matter of days, you can build out these agents. And finally, specialized expertise where some of these agents specialize in topics related to utilities, related to regulatory compliance. As a result of that, you see we get faster insights, smarter drafts, very well integrated within the human system, and you're able to respond to requests within a matter of few minutes. Garrett, back to you.
And the real opportunity here is to move from the single event of the tariff determination process to everything you need to do to support that process into a daily operational mode. And so the same agents that are built for that one-time process can also be deployed with the system in place without having to move the data, without a ServiceNow or a big IT project, and all of a sudden manage requests through email, ServiceNow, or schedule it, and operationally monitor the data for compliance against your tariff process. And then also schedule. So things like in the US, we're doing some gas leak detection work. So focused on grids and polygons. And one company has 9,000 different grids, and they've got to monitor them and survey them within 36 months. If they move outside 36 months, it's a fine of $2 million USD per grid. 9,000 grids, 2 million per. So the impact, we talk about value realization. This is a way to avoid cost, avoid public scrutiny, and improve your tariff process because you're not constantly out of compliance with the regulators.
Thanks. And thanks, Avinash, as well. In the same breath, I would want to talk about the second idea. And I would like to invite Nick and Elise for that particular. They are joining us from Australia with this idea, just to talk about how agentic AI is transforming the maintenance function, which is very relevant to all the industries that we are working in. Over to you, Nick and Elise. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. We'll try and keep it short, knowing we're running into schedule at the moment. But yeah, very happy to present our solution to you today based on smart asset operations within agentic AI. On behalf of Elise and Luke and myself, I'm very delighted to have been awarded as one of the winners this year. In our industry, asset maintenance and operations is a very complex task. It consists of the interplay of 4 key areas, primarily related to asset operations and maintenance, reliability of those assets, overall business structure and decision making, and then the parts that go into the assets themselves. Now, as you can imagine, these are very complex areas and they can often be disconnected from each other. Our solution looked to address common pain points that operators in these industries are experiencing, primarily around the 5 areas on the left-hand side of the screen that you can see here. The first of these is the inconsistent processes between those areas, but also within processes. For example, reliability engineering practice can be different from one part of the business to another. The next is your disaggregated data across the business, unstructured data that has precluded widespread adoption of data-based approaches to managing your assets. Next is the varying levels of experience of reliability engineering and practice. And then fourth, related to primarily the middle two of disaggregated data and varying levels of experience, is people are making decisions that are often based on anecdotal evidence and are recognized to be suboptimal, which brings us to the 5th challenge that we addressed with our solution, which is to use agents to surface the required information to prioritize your asset decisions using a data-informed process and to help improve workforce utilization. So what do we do? Within our solution, what we did was we adopted agentic AI to build 4 agents that are dedicated to the 4 areas I mentioned earlier. A parts interpreter that understands your assets in great detail, right down to the finest bolt, as well as the supply chain factors that they need to deal with in sourcing those parts. A reliability agent that looks at your work orders and notifications and develops the failure modes and trends over time to support asset management planning and maintenance strategies. A scheduling agent that is able to look at the maintenance and operations schedule in real time and make adjustments to balance uptime as well as equipment reliability. And then finally, your general manager agent who brings in the context of the overall business across all of this orchestrated process with those 4 agents. Our solution is actually built on top of an overarching platform that we're developing with one of our key mining clients, a global mining client based out of Australia. This platform has allowed us to embed the agents within a natural workflow using an intuitive UI that draws upon consistent data, structures it, even if it is unstructured, using AI, and then puts the results back into that consistent format. It also allows us to leverage existing analytical models based on machine learning and other mathematical techniques rapidly to do scenario analysis. So the benefits. So I mentioned earlier that single source of truth is incredibly valuable because it drives consistency. But by having the agents, we also have the ability to make scenario decisions very quickly and understand what are the effects, CapEx and OpEx, of different individual decisions along the line. So I'll now pass to Elise, who will go into a bit more detail on how all of that works.
So here is a brief overview about how the AI agents are integrated with the platform. So we can see that there's a conversation flow between the user and the agent. There's specific actions that the agents do depending on their area of expertise. And then there's also the live information sources that the agents are trained upon. So the agents themselves are trained upon various public and private data, reasoning and calculation models, all related to asset maintenance and operations. I'm starting to have a blank now.
That's all right. Yeah, so the core part of all of this is the orchestration of the agents and the common backend that is on the right-hand side of this screen. So they are context-aware agents, not just of the data, but of the specific mathematical techniques that they each need to know. So you can see if you take an operations maintainer who manages the schedule, they're always aware of what the current schedule looks like, and they can update it in real time, optimally knowing every single bit that is required to go into that. You can see with the spaghetti of arrows there that it is a complex process, but they can go back and forth with that information and surface real data to make your optimal decisions.
Team, thank you very much. I think we'll have other opportunities to kind of go through in detail, and you can catch up over lunch. Since we are already into borrowed time, can I request you to conclude and Sandeep to come up? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm thrilled to unveil a breakthrough that is reshaping how we operate and maintain our assets. Imagine a wind turbine that talks back. Talks back? What I'm talking? How can a wind turbine talks back? Yes, it talks back when you need and what it needs. A digital twin that doesn't just optimize the performance, but democratize the access of insights and control. Instead of climbing 80 meters to inspect a gearbox, imagine pulling a 3D model on a mobile and access the stress points in real time. So this digital twin is actually flipping the model. Conventionally, the maintenance systems have been reactive, they have been expensive and controlled. But now the usage of this digital twin is actually flipping the entire model. Field inspections are getting reduced by about 60%. Operations costs are getting down by 11%. These aren't just numbers, these are game changers. So let's dive deep into digital twin and ask a few interesting questions. Hey twin, what is the current status of turbine 1? I hope it gives me some response.
Turbine number 1 is operating at 92% efficiency. Wind speed is 12.4 meters per second, rotor speed is 15.0 RPM, and power output is 1500.0 kilowatts. Blade pitch angle is optimal.
Okay. any sign of wear or anomalies in the gearbox?
Gearbox vibration levels are within normal range. However, oil temperature has shown a slight upward trend over the past 72 hours. Recommend inspection within the next 48 hours to prevent thermal degradation.
Okay, let me check about the maintenance. What is the predictive maintenance window for the yaw system?
Based on usage patterns and torque load data, the yaw system will require preventive maintenance in 17 days. I recommend scheduling downtime during low wind periods to minimize energy loss.
Interesting. Can you compare the performance of turbine 1 with turbine 2? This is the most difficult question that I've asked to compare two turbines simultaneously.
Turbine number 2 is operating at 88% efficiency. It has experienced intermittent pitch control delays. Turbine number 1 is outperforming number 2 by 4% in energy yield this week. Recommend checking pitch actuator on turbine number 2.
Great recommendations. Thank you. But can you give me any recommendations to improve the overall efficiency?
Yes. Optimize blade pitch during low wind hours. Schedule predictive maintenance for turbines number 3 and number 5. Implement AI-based wake effect mitigation to reduce turbulence losses.
So you have seen the real revolution that isn't just revolutionizing the engineers in control room, but for technicians, analysts, operators to simulate various scenarios and make informed decisions. Thank you. And I invite you to experience this digital twin firsthand with us over the lunch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a story there. We had the digital twin. It wouldn't talk. And my contribution was to make it talk. I just suggested that they have a voice integrated interface. The reason is that it democratizes everything. You know, it makes it accessible on the ground to people. And by the way, this is English, but you can do it in vernacular languages very, very easily. We have other assets where it seamlessly goes into vernacular languages. As a conference organizer, Anvesha is in the room. As a conference organizer, I failed to keep time. I'm going to request you to come back in 45 minutes so that we can be closer to time for the post-lunch sessions. Thank you so much.
Energy and natural